Welcome to the Red Flag Diaries, the podcast that shows you what's really going on, with your hosts Amanda Hart and Belinda Coleman.
So Belle, this is our first ever episode, and I just want to say for people who are watching or listening, we are in a glamping dome in the middle of 5 acres in the middle of the countryside. So if you hear any farm machinery, any clanging about, it is harvest time. So yes, but this is why we chose this place, because it's beautiful and it's been gifted to us, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just looking out into a beautiful field now, and it's just very peaceful and
glorious, isn't it?
Yeah, wonderful. The sun is shining. It's a bit warm, but the sun's shining nevertheless.
So today's our first episode, and we're beginning with a conversation that's become increasingly important with football and society as a whole. So Belle, you're no stranger to that world, having spent almost 2 decades married to a professional footballer manager. So my question to you is, why did you feel this was the right place for us to start, and why does this conversation matter?
Football has an enormous reach, and so it becomes the lens through which we can talk about something that is happening all around us, and that's domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And for some, when the final whistle blows, it's joy, or it may be disappointment. But for others, it's the start of a very difficult evening. And that is what we are talking about, domestic abuse around major tournaments, key matches, so that we can raise awareness around what is happening behind closed doors.
Yeah. And I was fascinated when you pointed this out. So I've got here that you pointed this study by Lancaster University reporting that domestic abuse incidents increased by 26% when England won or drew, and 38% when England lost. And then some studies found that incidents remained elevated the following day. So that's remarkably high, isn't it?
That's very, very troubling.
Yeah,
those statistics.
I had no idea at all. And it's interesting because I met many years ago Professor Evan Stark, and he's the leading expert in coercive control, and he influenced the change to the Serious Crime Act, adding the coercive element or coercive control element, because he said that it's less about physical violence, it's patterns of control, intimidation, isolation, manipulation and loss of freedom. So Bella, this really leads me to want to ask these questions. So football has been a very, very big part of your life. What did you love about the game and the world you were part of?
Well, the thing about football is it brings communities together, and personally for me, I love football, and when I was in that environment, I met some amazing people, some inspiring people, some wonderful friends. It took me to parts of the world I'd never have travelled to, and also raising my 4 children around the game has brought some really lovely memories, of course, and really it's very community led, and it's also very family led. However, there's a dark side to football, unfortunately, and that is why we're talking about this today, and this is why it's very important to be able to help people understand what is actually happening around domestic abuse and football. And I just want to make it really very clear that football is not the cause of domestic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
But when you've got key tournaments, major matches playing, domestic abuse, as we've just explained, rises exponentially, and there is a reason for that.
And you've experienced football from several perspectives, as a fan sister, a footballer's wife, a manager's wife, a mother and a spectator. How did those different experiences shape your understanding of what's happened behind the scenes?
Well, most people, you see, they just get the 90 minutes on the pitch. And I saw it from what happens before and what happens after. Obviously, as a player's wife, there's the nerves, there's the anticipation, there's the injury, there's the contracts, there's the moments of doubt, and there's the identity tied to the game. And then as my brother is an avid Crystal Palace fan and has been since he was 7, and I saw the excitement, and sometimes, I mean, my brother can't even watch a game. That's how heightened his emotions are during a game, and that's part of the problem here. But and as a mother, my children grew up in and around the game and in and around the dressing rooms, and grew up with the players' children. It was a lovely experience for the best part, and the thing is, what I've realised, that football isn't about the people as such. It's more about human behaviour.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting when you look at it like that. It's not the game, it's what the game gives rise to, with how it creates extremities with people's behaviour, underlying behaviour sometimes, which is troubling. So from everything you've witnessed during your years in football, how could the emotional intensity surrounding major matches affect relationships and family life?
Well, here lies this is what lies at the heart of it all. It's how your emotions become, as I just said, so heightened before, during and after a game. And whereas most people, can handle that and can process that, some people take that into their family lives. And unfortunately, especially when there's other elements that are contributing factors, i.e. alcohol, and underlying factors, then it can just escalate problems that are already there. And for that person on the receiving end, this can be very, very disturbing for them, and scary, And the thing about domestic abuse in this respect is it's happening in plain sight. Because domestic abuse can be going on for years and years and years, and nobody outside that front door may even know about it. And that's the sad thing about it. Women that cover it up because of the shame, they want to still stay in the family unit, they have children. There's a lot of reasons why this happens, but it's something that it's not always brought out into the open. And these women and men are suffering, and sadly it becomes normalised.
I think that's really key here, saying that it becomes normalised, because I think, from personal experience, I think what we do is we tend to just justify it. Well, it's the game. It's, he's had a drink, or she's had a drink. But this is what we're going to discuss. We're going to go into a lot of this, how we normalise this behaviour. So what do you think people misunderstand about domestic abuse?
I think a lot of people are still under the impression that domestic abuse equals bruises and black eyes. And that's the biggest misconception around domestic abuse, because it can take on many, many forms. Coercive control, manipulation, humiliation, gaslighting, intimidation. And that's something that some people suffer, not just around football games, but on a daily basis. And I don't think that's recognised so clearly, because people haven't actually recognised that as domestic abuse. And when we're talking about coercive control, it's one of the most worrying of all, because it's a slow erosion of somebody's identity and freedom. And that's the sad part about it, is that people don't necessarily accept what's happening to them, but they aren't able to necessarily break free from those patterns and they certainly don't always see it from the very, very beginning. It's what they learn to accept.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part about it. And that's the misconception, that it's not just physical violence.
Yeah, yeah. And often it is the years and years of, I mean, I've had discussions with women who have come to me and said, I've been in this marriage for 45 years and I've only just realised that this is domestic abuse.
It.
So
as domestic abuse,
gosh.
That's exactly right.
And it leads me to this question: how does it affect people over time? Because that's really, this is a long game, isn't it? Sometimes with people, because they don't necessarily see it right at the beginning and come out of it. They keep going, don't they?
Yeah, they keep going. They keep going back because, as the saying goes, love is blind. I guess it chips away at their self-esteem and who they are as a person. It minimises the best parts of them, and they end up walking on eggshells. They end up scared, in fear, self-doubt. So it strips you of who you are as a person over the course of time, and so you end up shrinking and you end up becoming smaller than you should, because of what's happening to you.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's extremely important to make these attributes of domestic abuse, what's happening, known.
So why do you think people don't recognise these patterns until much later, Belle?
Because invariably it doesn't start off like that. It starts off with the partner starts off with gifts and kindness and love, and you're the one, you're chosen. They make you feel special, and then you're hooked. You get hooked into this narrative, but ultimately, sadly, it's a false sense of security, and somebody will go as far as to make sure they've got that person firmly within their grip before little breadcrumbs start appearing in their character, little chinks in their character. And it's a slow, it could be one apology, one excuse, one mistake one day, words not matching what they actually do, not matching their actions. There's so many ways in which somebody who is has this in their character, there's so many ways that they finally manage to start the control, and then how they can...
I think that's, you're so right, because it happens over time in a way that you second guess yourself a lot of the time. You think, oh, was that a mistake, or was that a one-off? But over the course of time, we realise that we're actually justifying everything because we're just putting it down to this or that, or he's been really tired because, or he's been under pressure because of the performance.
Of course, making the excuses to justify it. Where in actual fact, deep down, it's not right, but you don't want to say anything. You lose your voice, and you want to keep the peace.
Yeah.
And you don't want to upset the apple cart, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think I remember somebody saying to me, it's usually very strong people that actually, because that was the misconception before, when they thought it was just physical violence, which was domestic abuse, they felt, and this is the sad thing about how we used to be seen, women or victims were weak, and that's the reason why you don't leave them. In fact, actually, it's the other way around. The bully is weak and the victim is strong, and that's why they have them in that relationship, because they're feeding off them.
Yeah.
So what are some of the early warning signs people should be paying attention to, do you think?
It's, you have to ask yourself questions. Am I feeling more like myself or less like myself? And is it okay for me to speak to my family, to speak to my friends? There's a suggestion that maybe that you're no longer allowed to do these things, and you have to take notice of those little parts that come up, and question your judgment about, is that right? You have to ask, is this what he's doing or she's doing? Is this right? Is this normal? You know, and if you have to second guess yourself, if you feel that you're being lied to because of their behaviour, then, you know, you have to pay attention to those signs. Anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, fearful for your children, fearful for your safety, you have to pay attention to those signs. It could be, it starts off very, very small, but it builds up over a course of time to make you feel almost like you're going mad in actual fact. Yeah. So you start doubting yourself.
I mean, it's quite, looking back, you know, there's the financial control, the manipulation with vulnerable people, especially children, you know, even down to what, you know, I used to wear. You know, that was very much dictated to who you spend time with, who you can't spend time with, monitoring phones, you know, thinking, hang on a minute, I'm sure I'm being watched, because I start to wonder how this person understands that information when I never shared that. So it's these sort of things that add up over time, aren't they? So if someone's listening today and recognising themselves in this conversation, what would you want them to know?
I'd want them to know that they're not alone, first of all. And the thing is, somebody doesn't wake up one morning and lose themselves.
No.
You know, it's exactly that you said there. It's a slow erosion of self when you're with somebody that's trying to control you on all levels. And I would say that if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling vulnerable, reach out to somebody that you trust. Reach out to your GP, even a counsellor, a coach. Please don't try and do this alone, because it's very, very hard. And also keep a record of the incidents if you can. If it's safe to keep a record of everything, because that one day may be very, very useful. And if this conversation just helps one person or somebody's sister to reach out to them and just say, "Are you okay?" If that's the case here now today with us, you know, talking about this, then it's most definitely a conversation worth having.
I know from personal experience, I've spoken to people who have said, I had no idea. Somebody spoke to me the other day. I had a phone call. My sister said, I've had enough. She was married to she was with this man for 47 years, and nobody in the family had any idea that she was being abused. Because the thing is, the signs aren't clear on the outside, but the signs are there for those of us who are inside. But we need to reach out for those people. I mean, like, for instance, with this situation, 47 years she waited until she actually asked for help, and she did get the help in the end. Because this is the problem, isn't it? It's hiding it.
Yes, and if you think about it, 47 years ago, there was
nothing.
No. There was no reference to this, you know. And certainly, as you know, the law changed in 2015.
Yeah.
That coercive abuse was added to the Serious Crime Act. You know, it's taken until 2015 for that to even be recognised. Yeah. So all those years ago, there was nothing for anybody, and you were told, just get on with it, you know. And that's the sad part about it, all these years later, that somebody finally recognises what's happening. And so I know it's easier said than done. However, just reaching out to one person just may trigger that domino effect. And there you can talk to See Through MPD. You can go through our sponsor See Through MPD for help, for guidance. There is help out there, and it's worth making a plan.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you don't have to have all the answers today.
No.
You don't have to have everything worked out. Just make a plan, and just make that decision to, I know deep down this isn't right, and I'm going to do one thing today to help me through to help me through this.
I think that's been really helpful, because the thing is, I mean, looking back on all my experiences and the people I've spoken to, people don't know where to start. And so because it's become their familiar, it's often safer to appease the monster, so therefore you keep doing what you need to do to protect yourself rather than try and reach out, because they don't know where to turn. So See-Through MPD is a signposting platform, which was the passion project of Andrew Dixon, who recognised that there wasn't enough out there to signpost people to the relevant authorities. So it's a good place to start. You know, you don't have to expose yourself and become vulnerable, but going to a loved one first helps you to become get that safety bubble, and then you can slowly but surely just take one little step at a time. But I do agree with you. You making a record of what's been happening and being very cautious about that, how you do that. But the only way you're going to get out is if you reach out to get someone to get you out. And that's the first start, isn't it?
Yes, and of course you've also got the police, who will help in a very discreet way. Yeah,
absolutely. Well. And they're very clued up. As I say, we were, when we had the law changed to the Serious Crime Act, that coercive control element, the police, the judiciary, the health sector were informed how to actually look for the signs. So you'll find that these frontline services now look for signs. They can see if somebody's not quite right, and they will ask those leading questions. Not everybody is ready to actually say yes, I need help, but it is there. So what steps can somebody take if they feel they're maybe in an unsafe or controlling relationship then?
Well, like we've just said, pretty much, recognise that you are in a controlling relationship. Awareness is the first step. And then once you've... And be honest about it, Some people are just, they're in denial.
Yeah, and I recognise that. I recognise that a lot of times, and I've recognised it with conversations I've had with friends. I think denial is part of it, but I think it's self-preservation, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think what you think in your mind is, if it's too hard sometimes to even think about doing something about it because of repercussions, because you're scared. So therefore, people stay in it so they don't have to face the reality of it and what comes after.
So we touched on that. Looking back, what support was available to wives and partners during your time in football?
Absolutely. There wasn't really. No, I mean, we relied on our friends and family and girls, other wives within those circles. But for me, I actually sought the advice of my own therapist for well over 6 years. So I needed that guidance and that help because of some of the challenges that I was facing. And by the way, my ex-husband wasn't an abuser and he wasn't controlling, but other challenges per se. But there wasn't. I mean, there was. And there wasn't a great deal for the players. There was one guy inserted into the club who'd help them through, interview techniques, and they could go to him. And I did latch on to him at one point, Watt Nichols, who wrote the book Twisted Knickers, and he became good friends. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly, football has changed so much now. Oh, I probably don't have time, but I do have there was one day, and it was Ladies' Day. Yeah. Have I got time to tell the story? So at the time, they had this one day, and it was at Fulham Football Club. My ex-husband was captain of Fulham Football Club, and it was Ladies' Day. And because he was captain, they said, "Would you like to write a piece for the programme on Saturday?" And I said, "Yeah, great, I'd love it." So what I did was I called a friend of his who used to play with him at Crystal Palace, John Humphrey. And because John was sharp, and the banter in the changing room was, it was very, very funny. So I said, John, look, I've got this opportunity to write a piece in the programme on Saturday. You write it and I'll adapt it. Because I knew John was going to stitch Chris up royally. So he wrote this article and out it went on the Saturday. Chris never even asked to see it.
Oh, so you hadn't seen it before it went out?
Went out to the whole, yeah.
Gosh.
And he came in after the game and he went, what? All his mates are giving him stick. And what we'd written, or what John had written, was we talked about all the different signature dishes at all the different grounds, and Craven Cottage happens to be Balti pie. We talked a bit about that, how I'd gone around the different clubs. And then what I said was, most of you won't know this, but in the summer, but Chris is a very keen gardener, and in the summer we have a plentiful supply of carrots, potatoes and tomatoes. He couldn't even cut the grass because he had hay fever, let alone do any kind of planting. So the Sun newspaper picked it up on the Monday to say that Victoria Beckham had embarrassed David by posting the picture of him in a sarong, and I'd left Chris tomato red-faced by announcing that he's a keen gardener. So yeah, that was just a little. But
I mean, the thing is, it's, you know, that I can understand there's a lot of banter, and it's quite nice for you to be able to do something which was I mean, how did he take it?
We laughed because I said, "Don't blame me, blame your mate."
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And I've actually still got the newspaper cutting. Funnily enough, but yes, no, they didn't. Getting back to the original question, they didn't do a lot for wives and girlfriends back in the day.
And you can understand, because it really was, well, you just got to get on with it, suck it up and see, you know, that's it. That was the attitude.
I kind of went into my marriage with my eyes wide shut regarding the football world, really.
But football clubs today seem to be doing much more to support families and mental health and raising awareness around domestic abuse. So you know quite a bit about this now.
Well, do you know, I didn't so much. Until I researched it, because I knew football clubs have changed hugely in this regard, but I didn't quite know how extensive their help in the domestic abuse arena actually is. Okay. And so you've got major football clubs partnering with Women's Aid, for example, and there's also, within football clubs' stadiums themselves, you've got stewards, you've got numbers that if somebody feels threatened or they're frightened, there's reporting lines, and there's so much now, and there's education on well-being and mental health. Football clubs really are doing so much.
So they're embracing it now.
Absolutely. I was really quite very, very happy to see how much is being done.
So why do you think they're stepping into this role now? What do you think it's about?
Because at the heart of every football club is a community.
Yeah.
And they genuinely want the best for that community. And if that means, stamping out domestic abuse, then it puts them in a very, very good light. And I have to say, I was really, really, blown away by the help that football clubs now give to not just fans. You're talking about employees as well. There's the White Ribbon campaign, for example. There's a lot being done now to encourage women to come to the match and embrace football, and they're protecting that because of their communities, and it's very important to them.
That's interesting. I mean, we can put a lot of this down in the description, because I think people who are watching this and listening to this would like some more information. I mean, I certainly opened my eyes to it, because I haven't heard about any of this before we started discussing it. So we're now moving on to red flags. What red flags do you think we should be looking at? What sort of things that our listeners and our viewers need to see?
We've touched on this, constantly making excuses for somebody else's behaviour because it's enabling them.
Yeah, of course it is.
You're saying to them, this is okay, if you're making excuses for them. Yeah. And also feeling like you're walking on eggshells. That's a red flag. huge.
And when you're doing it, you're actually not aware you're doing it because you're just in that state all the time, that heightened state of awareness, aren't you?
And fear.
Yeah.
That's why, And, when you're spending time with someone and you feel drained after being with them,
Gosh.
you want somebody that lifts you up, that adds quality to your encounter, that you come away feeling supported and loved and lighter, not drained, so the other thing is, and ignoring your intuition, because everybody else sees a different side. They get the charming, the charismatic side. Everybody else loves that person, so what other people are saying, maybe there's truth to that. It's second guessing your own intuition, and actually because everybody else likes them, because generally a lot of abusers present themselves in the beginning in a relationship. They present themselves in the best possible way, but also to friends and families. They don't want the friends and families to know that they're an absolute so and so.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a friend of mine said to me, but he came round and put all my wardrobes up. He was so nice. Are you sure you've got this right? And I remember feeling panicked because she'd been a long-term, 20-year, friendship. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, if my friend doesn't know that I'm speaking the truth, then I might as well shut up. And I did. I just shut up because I thought there's just no way I'm going to be able to get that across, because everybody else sees this person as someone who's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, you're fighting two battles then, aren't you?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is, double whammy, really.
Yeah.
And feeling responsible for somebody else's moods. Like it's somehow your fault.
Yeah.
That you're the one that has to change your behaviour.
Yeah.
That's again, it's normalised, isn't it, to some degree, I believe. Finding yourself becoming smaller, quieter, not wanting to speak up, not wanting to express your feelings in case you upset that other person, and unable to speak openly and honestly, that you have to hide those parts of you that really want to be who you truly are, and you can't be that person anymore because you're worried if they may pick up on something that triggers them, that then causes something to spark. And that's the danger of being too open and honest. I know myself from previous relationships, being very open and honest in the very beginning, not realising that they were controlling, and then all of a sudden, I think I told you a story the other day, all of a sudden it gets really, it goes from 0 to 100, and it's very scary. So, and then all of a sudden you don't express yourself anymore in case it triggers
you shut down.
Absolutely. And explaining away behaviour that you would normally question because you just can't you can't defend yourself in those situations, and it's very draining. So you explain the behaviour away, and you kind of end up putting up with, or enabling it is a better way of looking at it. And also, do their words match their actions? Noticing what they say and what they do are two very completely different things. You might witness them doing all sorts for other people, like you just explained, but for you, it changes the minute you walk back through that door.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because it can sometimes be polar opposite, can't it?
And it's very confusing, and that's why people get so confused.
Yeah.
Because 1 minute they're presenting themselves as this great person and loving and capable, and everything. And by the way, if asked, how do sometimes smart people get involved with abusive partners? It's sometimes the very intelligent people and kind and empathetic. It's often those people that they do attract those people into their lives.
Yeah.
So it's there's no rhyme or reason, and domestic abuse doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. It can happen to you.
So why do people stay? Can you share that, Belle? What do you think?
Fear, for one thing. Fear of what may happen to them, what the repercussions are, what they have to deal with after they've left. You know, it could be financial reasons that if they leave, maybe they're being financially controlled. What are they going to do when they leave? So they may as well just stay and put up with it, you know. Hope, you know. Sometimes you're looking at someone's potential because you do see the good in someone sometimes, and the good actually does come out on the odd occasion. So you're hoping that that person that you saw last Tuesday, that he'll come back, you know, or she'll come back, and it'll all be okay. And so hope is a big draw, you know, in staying, you know. Public image, if you're, you know, in a elite circles, so, you know, an elite sort of partnership, you're looking at that too. Are people going to judge you? Are people going to start, you know, sometimes you feel it's best to stay under the radar rather than have that, you know.
And also, I guess, for people who've got, you know, built up a credible career, you know, what are people going to think about me if I tell them that this is happening and reveal it? So a lot of people stay because they've got to protect what they've created. And that's part of the manipulation as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And also, one of the biggest reasons, of course, is children.
Yes.
You know, sorry, I keep apologising to my microphone.
That's okay. Bless.
But it's children, you know. When you have children with someone, it makes it equally hard. It's not an easy thing to navigate. It really isn't, you know. But the more we have these conversations, the more we talk about this, and the more we can help people reach out to us, then there's a way through.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's slowly but surely, but, you know, it's not easy.
So I like this section that we've added. So we're going to add this each week. What I wish I'd known. So what's your what I wish I'd known? Looking back on your experiences in the past with any relationships that have challenged you in that way.
I wish I'd trusted my instincts. I wish I'd listened to the red flags, because red flags are information, but you see, we don't when we're younger.
No.
Because we do get pulled into what's nice, what feels good, what makes us feel loved and needed and wanted.
Yeah.
And in one particular case years ago, that is what happened to me. I mean, I was taken to all the best places. I was showered with gifts, and the words, all the love bombing. I mean, I fell hook, line, and sinker for this person, and then it's, you know.
So what you know now,
started.
that could have come in right in the early days and said, right, this is what's going on. And
Yeah,
you would
absolutely.
have,
Awareness. As I said earlier on, awareness saves lives. And I don't mean, you know, I mean, it can save you from years and years of being inside a coercive, controlling relationship, inside the walls of, you know, domestic abuse.
Yeah.
If you pay attention to what your intuition is telling you, act on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of this first episode. So I just want to read something, because this was something that Evan Stark wrote. And he said, abuse has less to do with what coercive and controlling people do to manipulate others than what they keep them from doing for themselves. The antidote to power over human beings is the power of self-creation and self-actualization. And sadly, Evan Stark died in 2024, bless him, from a fatal heart attack. And so we've lost one of our leading lights in the world of domestic abuse research. But he proved that pervasive harm is often coercive control, the systematic restriction of a person's freedom, identity and autonomy. So his research really changed the way we look at this and address this in this country now.
Yes, and interestingly, I think we were talking about this earlier, 95% of domestic abuse cases are coercive control.
That was what he was looking at with his research, and he was saying that, and that's why it was so strong, and that's why his research was heavily influencing the change of that act. So yeah, absolutely. And people do see this. They do ask different questions now. So I just want to round this up really. So for anyone who's been listening to today's conversation and this has resonated with you, we'd love you to become part of the Red Flag Diaries community.
Yeah.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss future episodes. And if you know someone who might need to hear this conversation, please like, comment and share it with them. If there's a question you'd like to answer, or a story you'd like to share, or a conversation you think more people need to hear, we'd love to hear from you. Just use the link in the description to get in touch, and with your permission we may feature your question or story in a future episode. And of course, if you'd rather remain anonymous, that's absolutely fine, as we'll always respect your privacy. Finally, if anything ever that we've talked about today comes up for you and it's raised concerns about your situation, please don't struggle alone. We've included links to support organisations and helplines in the episode description. So until next time, keep trusting. Thank you, Belle.
You're welcome. Thank you, Amanda. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.